In this next video, we're going to discuss French grip. So, to get to French grip, let's start off in a grip we already know, German grip. So, all we have to do to get to French grip is just if we rotate our forearm from our elbow, so we go like this, now our thumb is on top of the stick, and we're in French grip. So there's a lot of similarities between these two grips. You'll notice that the stick is still sitting in the first joint of each one of my fingers, but the only difference is that now my thumb is on top of the stick and my forearm is positioned like this instead of like that with the top of my hand facing up. So here we are in French grip, and what's great about French grip is that we can use our fingers to generate each note rather than our wrist. So while our wrist is really good for some things, our fingers are a lot faster than our wrist, and also playing in this grip is really great for drum set players because it gives us the option of switching to this grip if we're playing on the right side of the drum kit, so that we don't have to go like this and move our whole arm over while staying in German grip. So there's a couple exercises that I like to go through with everyone when they're learning French grip. And the first one is just to work on bouncing the stick using just our fulcrum, which in French grip is between our thumb and pointer finger. So let's do a little bit of that. So when I'm doing this, I'm focusing on keeping my thumb on top of the stick. At first your thumb is going to want to slide all over the place. Try and keep your thumb right on top of the stick as you're doing this. And I'm always paying attention to the angle of the stick as it goes down and bounces up. So I'm trying to get that stick to bounce straight up and down as much as I can. So this will really strengthen your fulcrum, and when we go on to the next exercises, you're going to see why you're going to want this to be strong. So the next exercise we'll do, we're going to keep this steady, but now we're going to use just our middle finger to push the stick. So here's what that looks like. Thumb on top of the stick still. You notice that I'm not moving my forearm or my wrist, and I'm just using this motion with my middle finger to move the stick. Next, let's try this with our ring finger. Bouncing it straight up and down. And lastly, let's use our pinky finger. So this pinky finger can be a little bit tricky, and a lot of drummers, you'll see, will use this French grip, but often their pinky will be sticking off. So I really try and get everyone to use their pinky when they're playing in French grip. And the reason for that is, if we think of this as a teeter-totter, say your friend is on this end here, and you're trying to pull the teeter-totter down from this side. So if you pull on the teeter-totter from here, it's going to be tough to pull from here. It's going to be a little bit easier if you pull from here, and it's going to be the easiest to pull it from the back because you'll have the most leverage. You'll have the longer, your lever will be the longest if you pull from this part of the stick. So if we take a look at where our hand is, since our pinky is actually the furthest away from the center here, our pinky has the most leverage out of all of our fingers. So we really want to have our pinky on the stick, because it's going to make a big difference once we put all of our fingers together. So the first finger control exercise that we have is written on the book, and you'll see that it's written as a bar of eighth notes, or at least the first line is a bar of eighth notes on the middle finger, a bar of eighth notes on the ring finger, and then a bar of eighth notes on the pinky. And after the first line, we then go down to 7 on each finger, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when you get to the bottom, I usually like to go from 1 back up to 8, but you can go back to 8 and go back down to 1 if you want. So I'll play through that so you can see what that looks like. So here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. So that tempo was probably even a little bit fast for your first time. Go slower, work your speed up from there. The next finger control exercise combines the right and left hand. Of course, you want to practice this with your left hand as well by itself before you move on to putting both hands together. So when we get onto the drum kit and we're using our fingers, we're always going to use all of our fingers at the same time. So the previous exercise where we went one finger at a time is just an exercise to make sure that each finger is developed evenly and that when each finger pushes a stick, that it's able to bounce the stick straight up and down. Because lots of times if two of our fingers can bounce a stick straight up and down, but then one of the fingers kind of pulls the stick all over the place, it's kind of like if we drive a car with three of the wheels aligned and one of them is a little bit wobbly, it's going to affect how, the entire car moves. And similar, if we have one finger that's acting weird, it's going to pull the stick slightly in one direction and it's going to make it a little bit inefficient because it's going to take away from the other fingers. So once you can play each hand by itself, we're then going to do that same exercise going back and forth, but with each hand. So I'll take the speed up a little bit. Let's go about here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that was the second finger control exercise. So I did that same thing where I went from 8 all the way down to 1. So these are just a couple exercises to get you started with some finger control stuff, and that's all I have for finger control today.